Welcome to Smash Fiction, a podcast where we pit fictional characters against one another in a battle of strength, or wits, or majestically galloping over fantasy landscapes while manes billow elegantly in their wake. And see who would win. The real winner is me, because I've tricked the other hosts into letting me do another secret podcast within a podcast wherein I dispense animal facts. Suckers. This week, Epona versus Shadowfax versus Agro versus Maximus. It has been an unknowable amount of time since the Nothing, a roiling storm that left nothing, literally nothing, in its wake, devoured the world known as Fantasia, but was ultimately defeated by a boy reading a very meta fantasy book. That could have been the end of it, but it's not called the Neverending Story for poops and giggles. The Nothing has returned and the Empress has fallen ill once more. Maybe Fantasia has an anti-vaxxer problem. Who can know?
Get him, kid!
Yeah, fuck him!
Yeah!
That's a different podcast. Anyway, the last time they sent a warrior to save the day, he lost his horse in an incredibly traumatic swamp incident. And so the only reason he got to the Empress in time was because a luck dragon found him. Don't count your luck dragons before they've hatched, as Mama used to say. Aww. So this time, just to be safe, the Empress's court is sending 4 warriors with 4 horses. The warriors ain't no Atreyu, though, so the success of this mission will depend more on the horses than their riders. This journey will test 4 specific attributes of our hero horsies. 1. Endurance. They will have to endure running for long distances and for long periods of time. Not a particularly hard challenge for horses in general, if it were not for the difficult terrain and harsh climates of the Silver Mountains and the Desert of Shattered Hopes. 2. Willpower. The noble steeds will encounter terrible tests of will, like the swamps of sadness that are known to swallow and drown any who succumb to sad memories, or the Sphinx Gate, which will only allow those with confidence in their own self-worth to pass through alive. 3. Intelligence. Our equine adventurers will be most successful if they can make good use of their intuition and creativity in getting past the very many dangers. And 4. Speed. The Empress is dying, so everything these remount racers do will have to be done quickly, and they may even have to outrun the wolf-like servant of the Nothing, Gmork. God, that's a really stupid name.
Yeah.
Not intimidating at all.
It sounds like you started making up one name and then switched halfway through.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like, my name is Gmork.
It sounds like he made some sort of choking noise during dinner and decided, you know what, that's a villain.
Which of these heroic horsies can outrun the Nothing, survive the challenges, and arrive at the Empress in time? I don't know. I don't have a horse in this race. That is why I, Kit Mustang Mulcairn, will be your impartial judge for this match. Advocating for Shadowfax from The Lord of the Rings is Dan Destrium Mulcairn.
Looks like the facts are on my side.
Yay! That was great!
Advocating for Agro from Shadow of the Colossus is Claire Courser Mulcairn.
I would say hey, but as we all know, that's for horses.
Yay.
Just getting them out early. Advocating for Maximus from Tangled is Megan Bronco Bob. Oh yeah. And returning to advocate for Epona from The Legend of Zelda is Raphael Rouncy Medina.
In a battle of good horse boys, sometimes your best choice is the bestest horse girl, and she's doing her part in this battle of good ponies to draw and quarter your heart.
Oh, good girl.
So it's that kind of episode. All right. To determine which order our advocates will leave the starting gate, I've told them in advance to come up with the best racehorse name for their characters, and I will decide turn order purely on which ones I enjoy the most. Entertain me! If you're not familiar with how weird racehorse names could be, some examples are No Soup for You and May the Horse Be With You. Look up racehorse names, they're great. With that said, Dan, even though he's already got a pretty weird name, what is Shadowfax's racehorse name?
I think I'm going to go with Wizard Car.
Oh, starting strong. Claire, what would Agro's racehorse name be?
Yeah, given that Agro's kind of biggest trait is her loyalty to Wander, I think she's going to be stable relationship.
Oh, that's cute. Okay. Bob, if Maximus went undercover as a racehorse, what would his name be?
Given his fondness for wielding blades, I decided Max the knife.
Okay, straightforward. And Raphael, what would Epona's racehorse name be?
I think I'm going to stick with the usual kind of cocky gamer convention and say that Epona's racehorse name is Eponing Some Noobs.
Oh! Okay, I think I've decided. It was difficult, but coming in 4th place is Maximus. In 3rd is Agro. 2nd place is Epona. And the name that tickled my fancy the most is Shadowfax's.
Wizard car!
Before Shadowfax takes off, did you know horses evolved from a small multi-toed animal the size of a Labrador into a 1-ton animal that is always walking around on what is its ancestor's middle toe? Technically speaking, horses are always flipping you off. Go ahead, Shadowfax.
Look, these other horses all have their place. If you're out for a leisurely trot, Epona or Agro are perfectly serviceable. Hell, I'll even give Maximus credit for his ability to run a police force effectively. But we're talking about riding headlong into danger, and in that case, these other chumps can stay in the stables and put their hooves up, cause only one horse is uniquely suited for braving the dangers of Middle-earth, Fantasia, or any other fantasy world out there. Shadowfax. If Shadowfax can be counted as a horse, it's only by the slimmest of technicalities. He's technically a member of the race called the Mieris, which were brought to Middle-earth by angels. They are to horses what wolves are to chihuahuas, greatly eclipsing them in strength, speed, endurance, intelligence, and lifespan. Various sources say that Shadowfax could run faster than the wind. Not counting tornadoes or similar extreme weather conditions, the fastest recorded wind speed on record was 253 miles per hour. Other sources say he could run faster than an arrow, which would put him at a more modest 150 miles an hour. Either way you slice it, our boy Shadowfax is well into the triple digits with his speed, which goes a long way to explaining why he was Gandalf's first choice when it came to getting from one end of Middle-earth to the other in a hurry. Shadowfax was able to carry both Gandalf and a fully armored Gimli on their journey, and he still outpaced the other horses they were riding with, each of which was only carrying one rider. Virtually everything Gandalf accomplishes in the second half of Lord of the Rings is thanks to how freaking fast Shadowfax is. But don't think for a second that this horse can't keep up the pace over long distances. In Return of the King, Shadowfax runs from Edoras to Minas Tirith, a journey of hundreds of miles, almost without stopping, outpacing the flying dragon mounts of the Nazgul. We see at points that his riders are sleeping as Shadowfax just keeps tirelessly sprinting along, putting hundreds of miles behind him as he burns a track from one end of the continent to the other. And this horse is fearless. He rode into the Battle of Morannon against a force of tens of thousands of orcs, trolls, and monsters. During the Siege of Gondor, the Witch King of Angmar shows up, and every single horse on the good guy's side runs away in sheer terror, except for Shadowfax, the only horse to stand unmoving and unafraid against the undead horror. Horse-eating swamps and laser-eyed sphinx statues might scare off my competition, but Shadowfax will just keep riding on. Shadowfax has a lot of traits that the other horses here simply have no way to compete with. For one thing, his coat actually changes color. In daylight, he's a silvery gray, but at night he becomes so dark he's almost invisible. He's also not afraid to mix it up in combat. Not only does he kick douche King Denethor into a fire in the film version of Return of the King, he also participates in the final battle of the Black Gate. And I want to clarify that the book does not make clear that Gandalf actually fights this battle on horseback. So it is fully possible that Shadowfax made a heroic speech to the assembled armies, grabbed a sword, and started chopping his way through trolls and ringwraiths by himself.
Fuck yes!
Dan, we only get 1 point to rebut in these rebuttal sections. You're just stacking the deck right now, and I gotta waste my time digging through all that nonsense.
Theoden once said that there will never be a finer horse in Middle-earth than Shadowfax. Keep in mind that Theoden is king of the Rohan, the country that has a borderline creepy love for all things horse. Not only does he know what he's talking about, but for a Rohirrim to claim a favorite horse has to be like a parent naming a favorite child. And yet, Shadowfax takes that title easily. Unlike dogs, not all horses go to heaven. You know which one does? Shadowfax. He gets to go to the Undying Lands at the end of Lord of the Rings because he's such an epic horse that he goes to elf heaven. And you know what? Those elves are lucky to have him. Fly, you fools, away from this match, because Shadowfax just crushed any chances you had of winning.
Did you know horses can't vomit? So don't go inviting them to your college parties. Best case scenario, the horse doesn't die, but he thinks it would be the best prank ever to steal your rival school's mascot and take giant horse dumps all over the football field. And then your whole fucking fraternity is suspended. Just don't. You hear me, Epona?
The Legend of Zelda is an amazing series with gripping stories and innovative gameplay, which keep players reliving the same rehashed tale of good versus evil, like a child wanting to hear the same bedtime story for the 100th night in a row. Hashtag baby burn, hashtag all tea, no shade. Yet, with each inevitable release, the same question is immediately posed to the developers. But can you get the horse? Not a horse, but the horse. Gaming's most famous horse, per Daily Dot. A steed so wondrous and beloved that none other of the series' myriad modes of transport even broach acceptability. You give me Epona, or you can take the boat-reincarnated king of the cursed and sunken land of Hyrule, turn him sideways, and shove him right back up your ass. Among a generally stubborn species whose single reason for existence is based upon the single-minded revenge against mankind, Epona is not only smart and capable of interspecies communication, but fiercely loyal to her rider. In Ocarina of Time, where we see even other humans fail to recognize Link after a 7-year absence, Epona remembers and trusts the hero from their respective foal and prepubescent pseudo-elfhoods, and together they escape, bonding as a legendary duo which mists even the steeliest eyes. In Twilight Princess, Epona can even communicate interspecially, as her best friend is a wolf. Thus, she can't be a predatist, her best friend is a wolf. So, long, never-ending story short, the only thing happening when the Gamork shows up is the two of them getting catty on the competition like an episode of RuPaul's Horse Race. Speaking of being better, Epona is simply a hardier breed of steed than the other ponies. Not only is she herself literally invulnerable to harm, in Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, she imbues her rider with this power, rendering Link invincible as he rides. This comes in especially helpful when she can simply mow down even powerful enemies just by galloping into them, her mighty legs akin to a hooved amalgam of tank treads and a wood chipper. Her transferable imperviousness also allows her to stick impossible jumps that would find other horses on the express rail car to Elmer's headquarters. In Ocarina of Time, she jumps the Lon Lon Ranch wall, down a 30 to 40-foot drop on the other side, and rides off to freedom and adventure without so much as breaking stride. Fuck your wall, Epona jumps it invincibly. You can't hurt Epona. You can only hope to annoy her. When in said stride, Epona never has to stop her breakneck pace to eat, sleep, rest, or require any kind of recovery. With effective boost management, she can maintain top speed from one edge of the map to the other. There exists YouTube video evidence that she literally, including breaks due to shitty boost management, I'm calling you out, YouTube, is faster than a divine biomechanical motorcycle powered by magic and mummy farts driven non-stop at top speed. She goes from dead stop to warm up to sprint, and she's still faster. The only mode of travel faster than Epona is to break space-time itself and warp to your destination. With this incredible pace and her impossibly high Twilight Princess jumps, about 3 times her own height in a vertical ground jump, she'll be soaring over obstacles like she's in the goddamn X Games. Fuck your swamp, Epona whip flips into a 360 over it, invincibly. As for willpower, there's a lot of confidence to be felt when you know your steed is impervious to attack. Link, a great avatar for the random gamer controlling him and thus the riders in this scenario, is just better, stronger, and more capable because of Epona. her rider would be unsusceptible to the depressing musings impelled by the surroundings of the swamps of sadness. Leave the sad horse feels to the BoJack Horsemans of the world, for whom the swamp of sadness is just another name for their depressing Hollywood bachelor pad. Unmatched speed, impossible jumps, and transferable invulnerability by osmosis, what you may call an oversight against balanced game mechanics, I call a lack of foresight and poor choice of steed on your part, son. Epona is simply leaps and bounds above her competition, and she leaps and bounds them invincibly.
Wow, that was some video game horse shit. But did you know? In a 2013 study in the UK, horses were recorded displaying restful behavior when listening to Beethoven or country music by Hank Williams Jr., but displayed stress behaviors when listening to Green Day or jazz by New Stories. Judging by their musical tastes, maybe you don't have to worry about horses getting invited to college parties. Depends on the college. So here's our second video game horse.
The website Mashable once had a real-life equestrian expert watch someone playing Shadow of the Colossus to evaluate how good of a horse Agro was. The first thing she was impressed by was Agro's ridiculous size, stating simply, "That horse does not exist." Then, after comparing how well-behaved Agro was with apparently how poorly Wander handles his reins, she concluded, "This rider doesn't deserve such a good horse." When finally asked to rate how good of a horse Agro was on a scale of 1 to 10, she said, "Horse gets an 11, rider gets a 1. Fans can't agree about what sort of horse Agro is supposed to be. She seems to be an indecisive horse girl's dream come true, with the size and speed of a draft horse, the endurance of an Arabian, and the speed of a thoroughbred racehorse. In all her attributes, she has achieved maximum horse potential, making her, if you will, a sort of horse Captain America, or a Captain America.
Ah.
And the numbers back this up. The average horse has a top speed of about 30 miles an hour. Agro's normal gallop is somewhere between 40 and 50 miles an hour, making her at or slightly above the real-world record fastest speed ever recorded of a horse carrying a rider of 43.97 miles an hour. This explains why she is able to outrun the lightning-fast sandworm Dirge and dodge the energy attacks of Bossaron. So her normal gallop is as fast as the world's fastest horse on its best day. That's fine, but what pushes Agro into being a legit super horse is that she can ride at this full gallop indefinitely from one end of the Forbidden Land to another. And also, she's basically indestructible. Anytime during gameplay that she gets hit by a Colossus or takes a fall, or even if you strike her with your sword, she just shrugs it off. I have not ever, for the record, hit Agro with my sword, but on the internet, you hear things. I have only ever given Agro the nicest of pets and let her know that she is a very good girl, because she is.
Good.
Now that all that's done, there is something I am dying to talk about. Raphael already talked a little bit about horse jumps, but I am here to talk about extreme horse stunts. If you learn the controls well enough, there is a whole bunch of advanced maneuvers that Agro can do that are going to come in handy in the various battles and chase scenes that await us. She can perform a quick start or a quick stop, which lets her go from standing still to a full gallop instantly, or vice versa. She can also perform a nearly instant 180-degree turn at top speed. I did not realize that horses had an e-brake, but if she needs to pivot in a hurry, Agro will bust out a Forbidden Zone Drift bootleg 180 on your ass. My favorite extreme horse stunt, however, has to be that her ride is smooth enough that Wander can hang off her side or even stand on top of her like she's a goddamn skateboard. While fighting the Colossus Phalanx, Wander actually has to do this to win, riding alongside the flying monster before surfing on Agro's back and then leaping off onto the Colossus's wing. I have not seen whether or not he could make her do a kickflip or grind her belly on a rail, but I wouldn't be surprised. Finally, the thing that sets Agro apart the most, the reason that I want to represent her, is her unparalleled willpower and loyalty. In perhaps Agro's most famous scene, while riding across a stone bridge to the final Colossus, that bridge starts unexpectedly collapsing beneath her feet. In the last moment before she falls, she bucks Wander off, flinging him across the bridge to safety. Agro then falls about 100 feet down a canyon to a rushing river below. Any sane human being would of course assume that this is the end of Agro. I certainly did the first time I played, but after you beat the game, Agro comes back. In the final scene, Agro limps back into the temple, apparently with a sprained leg, but otherwise still okay. Even Wander doesn't survive until the end of the game, but Agro does. So fuck your Swamp of Sadness, fuck your Sphinx Gate. Agro has more determination in one hoof than Atreyu has in his whole dumb haircut. Even if all of Fantasia gets destroyed, as it does in the movie, and all of the other horses are drifting out in outer space, Agro is still going to be paddling through the void in defiance of all known laws of zero-gravity physics and horse biology, never giving up until her master completes his quest. I could go on, but Kit has told us that we're under strict time limits, and if I were to enumerate all the ways that Agro is the greatest of all horses, now that would be a real never-ending story.
Oh.
Did you know? The part of a horse's bones that we think of as the knee is actually made up of carpal bones that correspond to the human wrist. Yeah, think about a horse doing that, like limp wrist motion. Yeah, it's fucking weird. Pretty sure that's a thing that Disney horses do a lot. And speaking of, Maximus is coming out of the gate.
Here's my idea for the Neverending remake. Close up on the hero. Some chuckle fuck with a sword. You think the story is about him, but I'm gonna say some words that are gonna blow your mind. You remember that grim fuck Javert from Les Miserables? This horse is that guy, but better. He's a horse cop. You see the whole story through his eyes as he does what it takes to rescue this empress in Fantasyland or whatever. At first the horse is like, can I do this? And then the horse flashes back to rescuing two different princesses. A boy princess criminal and a girl princess captive. What, a boy can't be a princess? It's 2019. Read a book for Christ's sake. Anyway, horse cop's got experience. He could do this. So Chucklefuck is tasked with finding the cure, and they have all this ground to cover. The horse is like, oh damn. Then flashback to the time he had to run all the way from the capital city to a hidden tower in the woods, and the boy princess is like, we have to hurry. And horse cop makes this noise like, fuck yeah we do, pal, and starts running even faster. It's over rough terrain, trees to jump, sudden curves, basically a death trap for a horse. But this horse is weaving and darting at breakneck speed, no problem. And flashback. The tower is 2 days walk from the city, but this horse makes that trip in 6 hours? Because damn, those hooves. There's not going to be a clock on the screen or anything, but the quality of the light will be different, so you'll know. Savvy viewers will know. We see that Horse Cop is riding around looking for the cure and something happens to his rider. Oh no, all is lost. But flashback to Horse Cop being on his own without the captain of the guards on his back, and he's still pursuing the boy princess he's after. All this backstory is about him pursuing a criminal boy princess, by the way. He pursues him to a bar and sniffs around like a drug dog until he finds the trap door and then pulls the lever to open it. Everyone's like, is this horse Columbo? But the horse isn't done being creative. The other guards get disarmed and the horse grabs the sword in his mouth and starts fighting the boy princess because Horse Cop always gets his man. Boy princess swings away to a ledge and Horse Cop sees a wooden beam and kicks it down to make a bridge. Everyone goes, that horse can do physics? And flashback. Back in the main story, the horse is faced with sadness and tests of confidence. Flashback to the horse's greatest test. He catches the criminal boy princess, but he has to decide if it means more to follow the law or do the right thing by helping the girl princess. He's Horse Cop, he's gotta follow the law, but in his soul, he knows that it means more to do what's right. So he has to be true to the core of his values and help her. The horse is so sure of this about himself that he rescues the boy princess from prison by charming a bunch of ruffians into helping. I don't know. The boy princess is in jail for B&E maybe. We'll work it out later. So the boy princess lands on the horse's back and everyone's after them, shooting arrows, waving swords, and Horse Cop runs off the parapet, leaping like 40 feet onto a roof. Tiles are flying everywhere, and then you see him thunk down onto the ground to keep running. And everyone goes, is that horse the goddamn Batman? And flashback. Anyway, to conclude, Horse Cop is great. I'm sorry I locked you in this elevator to give you the pitch, but I regret nothing. Horses rule. This horse is the best. I hope you have a nice day.
Did Phil from Hercules just advocate for Maximus?
Bob, I don't know what that character was, but I want to have them back many, many times on this show.
Say Horse Cop
Phil.
one more time.
Yeah.
It's fucking Horse Cop.
Wow. These are all such good horsies. But in order to determine who can best outrun the nothing, you guys are just gonna have to go feral in the rebooties. But first, did you know? Horses are in an order of animals called the odd-toed ungulates. And because of this, they are more closely related to their fellow odd-toes, the rhinos, than they are to deer, which are even-toed ungulates. And if that's not weird enough, like maybe you can squint real hard and see how horses and rhinos could be related. Yeah, well, hold on to your asses, because whales and dolphins evolved from even-toed ungulates, so they're more closely related to deer than deer are to horses. It's all in the bones, baby. And make no bones about it, Shadowfax is up first. Pile on dat horsey.
I'll take a shot at a horse that never did anything wrong to me.
Oh.
That's what the match is all about, man.
Shadowfax. When Gandalf was trying to coax him into working with him, fucked off for like 2 days straight, not inclined to listen, and really only listens to Gandalf because of his ranking. And if I am to understand, if we are B Treyu, C Treyu, D Treyu, and E Treyu respectively, that we're not going to hold positions that are going to interest Shadowfax enough to want to maintain his servanthood to the writer.
You would think so, because, Shadowfax is kind of, an elite horse that's not actually really a horse. But the thing is, Shadowfax has carried both Gimli and Pippin when Gandalf commands him to. If we presume that one weird ridged head dude in the ivory tower from Neverending Story has commanded the horses to carry the various Treyus, Shadowfax won't have a problem carrying them because he's been given an order from his superior, which he respects.
The various Treyus is my new, folk rock band name.
That's pretty good.
I've heard a lot about how brave he is and how fast he is and how full of endurance he is. I am not convinced that this horse is a problem solver. I believe that he is intelligent. I question whether or not he is invested in using his intelligence to solve problems because he's Shadowfax. He doesn't really have to. It's like, I'm a god. What are you going to do?
Would you classify a ringwraith as a problem? Because he has faced ringwraiths before and was able to get through it. He escorts medical transport during the Siege of Gondor, and that was a very tricky situation. He sees that Douche King Denethor is a problem and is threatening Faramir, and so he very creatively kicks him into a fire. He can solve problems. We don't get to see him leaving a trail of solved Rubik's Cubes behind him over the course of Lord of the Rings, but he runs into problems and he solves them.
All your nonsense about his speed is ridiculous. In terms of his actual sprint speed, the best that I can find is that based on the fact that his trot speed is about as fast as a normal horse's gallop, and that a gallop is usually 3 times as fast as a trot, he can actually probably only go between 78 and 94 miles an hour. There's a whole bunch of facts here, which is still very fast, but also he doesn't have quite as much endurance as you would think. There was somebody who did all of the math based on the distance from Minas Tirith to Dol Baron, which is 430 miles, and because he only travels at night during that time, so if you assume that he travels 12 hours a day, and over the amount of miles that he traveled, it ends up being about a 10 mile per hour average, which is about the fastest that a normal horse could go for a really extended period of time. So he can sprint pretty fast, but I don't think his normal travel speed is that much faster than an actual horse.
Well, that one particular journey you mentioned wasn't the only time that he's had to travel overland for a very extended period of time. There's the time that I mentioned where he rides from Edoras to Minas Tirith, which are in different parts of the continent, and he does all of that almost without resting. He has an amazing amount of endurance. Anytime that Gandalf shows up at a place way earlier than he should have, it's entirely because Shadowfax ran from one country to another without stopping.
All right, next up, pile on Epona.
There's a lot of plot points across all of the Legend of Zelda games where Epona gets really badly scared. She gets scared by those fairies at the beginning of Majora's Mask. In Twilight Princess, she runs in fear when King Bulblin arrives. And then later on in Twilight Princess, she's running away from a couple of Bulblins, which are basically just fat goblins. If Link isn't on her, she is not a brave horse. She really needs his specific encouragement to be courageous.
Ah, man, and that is such a good point, as there is no rider. She's going here by herself, and she doesn't have the avatar of the rider with her this whole time. Oh, wait. but she does. Yeah, she can be afraid, or not even afraid, but necessarily trying to get away from these things that do mean her harm, but she's getting away from them. And with her rider, she is inevitably intrepid.
I played a lot of Legend of Zelda, and you're right, she can leap fences in theory, but if you're not, like, exactly perpendicular to the fence and at your max speed and doing it all right, she won't do it. She's gonna be like, nah, I don't want to leave that fence. Like, so she, like, kind of can go over rough terrain sometimes, but you gotta really be on your game and hit it, like, exactly perpendicular at max speed.
Claire, I cannot account for your particular skill or lack of skill in navigating Epona. I've never run into any trouble with her when I've been navigating.
You've never failed to jump over a fence while playing Legend of Zelda.
Never once.
I like Epona a lot. She is a very simple horse. She is a very simple horse. And I don't know what else to say. Just that I don't want to be mean. She's about as bright as a horse is, which is to say about as bright as a tropical fish.
Hey man, that's a pretty smart fish out there.
Yeah,
I will point out that she, as aforementioned, is capable of interspecies communication, and that in and of itself, not only talking with other horses, but also other species as well, kind of shows a sort of innate naturalistic intelligence that she is capable of.
All right, next up is Agro.
Agro, you're beautiful. I want to pet you a lot. You can't run on narrow paths. They're very difficult for you. And there's probably going to be a lot of narrow paths. And also jumps. Some jump problems. But you're so pretty and I want to pet you.
What narrow paths are these that Agro can't run on?
Just narrow ones.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, the sorts of paths that Agro can't, like, run on are basically, like, you're in goat territory at that point. Like, I just think it's more impressive that Agro can go on a lot of, like, narrow little tiny paths on the sides of mountains and stuff like that, and on the sides of cliffs without being afraid, you know.
Good job surviving that fall, Agro, only to need to be put down after the credit sequence. My ass. That leg is broken, and you are on the rail car to the Elmer's glue factory.
Okay. Here's the deal. I did some research because I assumed the leg was broken as well. But according to internet horse experts on various forums, some people said...
What a phrase.
We are going to the experts at Reddit and 4chan for this.
Yeah, well, I think it was Reddit. It was not 4chan. But they
4chan
said that
would not have wholesome things to say about horses, tell you that.
They said it seems more likely that Agro just, like, sprained her leg and didn't break it because she wouldn't have been able to, like, swim out of the water or walk like that if she was on a broken leg. She would have been paralyzed in pain, basically. So, I mean, either she just sprained it, and that's even more impressive, or if it was broken, then good on her for, like, having better pain tolerance than any known horse. And I'm sorry if taking a fall of 100 feet gives your horse a sprained leg, or perhaps even a broken leg. All your other horses would have just been splushed into, like, goop from that.
Except the one that's invincible.
All right, so Claire, I get that Agro is a good horse, but that's it. Like, she's just a good horse. Like, there's nothing magical. There's nothing magical about her. She never fights anyone directly. You were talking about all those horse stunts, but, like, at least half of that is Wander having amazing grip strength and balance and agility. She's there
not according to the person on the Mashable thing. She said he was terrible with those reins. But
well, with the reins maybe, but when it comes to, like, surfing on her like a surfboard, that's pretty impressive. Like, in the end, she's there to help Wander get where he's going. She just doesn't really bring anything else to the table.
You're kind of right. I mean, she has a really good sense of direction, and she's very smart and intuitive. She always comes when she's called, even if it's, like, you know, across the world. Whenever Wander gets teleported back to the temple at the end of killing a Colossus, she finds her way back to him, and she can stand being in Colossus fights, you know, when these giant kaiju are stomping all around her. So, like, she's not a magic horse, you're right, but, like, I'd rather take the horse that's, like, an 11 as opposed to, like, your horse who's, like, a 15 if you're Gandalf, but if you're a normal person, it's like a 2.
Let's all pile on Maximus. Watch out! He's got a sword.
Pretty decent with the sword. Give him that. But them horse ain't loyal. You better hope that Maximus doesn't meet some charismatic or even moderately perky opposition along the way, because that mount is likely to switch sides on you. Nameless goon, just like Maximus's original writer.
That's fair. However, he does switch because in his heart he knows that that is the right thing to do, is to follow through on what's in his soul. His soul, Raphael. But also, even though he wasn't loyal in that sense, he is still so charismatic, apparently, that he still gets to be the chief of police afterwards.
Everything that Maximus attempts to do, no matter how simple, inevitably turns into this Looney Tunes-esque slapstick sequence. Like, the entirety of Tangled Ever After is about Maximus just trying to get a wedding ring, and it's like he accidentally gets into ladies' clothes, he gets catapulted into the air, he gets smacked around by multiple frying pans. When he finally gets the ring at the end, after he's presumably suffered from multiple concussions, he then accidentally destroys Flynn and Rapunzel's wedding cake because he didn't watch where he was going. Everything is an event with him.
You know, I knew you were going to bring this up. I saw that and went, oh, that's going to be what Dan talks about, isn't it? So here we are, Dan, you and me, talking about your horse shaming.
All right, well, I've done my half.
It is a relatively low-stakes situation. It is a wedding ring. It is not the fate of somebody on their birthday, which is significantly more important because she'd never had a real birthday before. Also, he survives all of that and is completely fine, and your horses would have been destroyed emotionally, if not physically. I'd like to see Shadowfax go through that. Shadowfax's dignity would have exploded and his brain would have, melted out of one of his big ears.
It's undeniably very impressive. If we're doing a contest of who's the best at sword fighting or who can best recognize someone based on a wanted poster, I think we know who's going to win here. That's fair. But that's not what Maximus is being called on to do here. We just need him to be a horse, and he's only an average horse. I'm sorry. He's very good at, he's really good at a lot of other things, but your team, each one of these teams already has a warrior guy with a horse. All we need is just the horse to be a horse that you can ride and get you somewhere quickly. And he's gonna be wanting to show off and do a bunch of other stuff and get distracted. And it's very impressive that he can do these things, but they don't help him accomplish this goal.
I think you see that at the beginning of the film, he's goal-focused in a way that is pretty extraordinary and takes it on to continue the task even though his rider isn't with him. So I think that he's too good at being a horse. I think what you're seeing as a problem is that he is too good at being a horse. He does stompies on Flynn's hands to try and get him to drop the loot.
That's pretty horse.
Yeah,
that's extremely horse.
Stompies are horse.
Having been a bit stomped once, I can tell you, it's a very horsey thing.
As the Nothing closes in on the horses, Chris McDougal sits in his attic library reading over his work as a storm rages outside. He finds he's written himself into a corner. The Nothing is about to consume everything, just like it did in the first Neverending Story. But this is a fanfic Chris is writing. Having 4 horses in charge instead of Atreyu isn't enough. It's still too much like the original. Then lightning strikes, and so does McDougal's inspiration. Just as the Nothing roils against the tails of the fleeing horses, lightning reaches out of the clouds like flashing claws and strikes each of the steeds. It's the lightning round. I am so happy y'all just went with the horse sounds. When the horsey heroes come to, they find themselves standing in an attic library, Chris McDougal's library. Immediately, Maximus threatens Chris with a sword, but Shadowfax nudges him back in a let him speak sort of way. Chris explains that he's been writing this crossover sequel fanfic about the first Neverending Story film because it's supposed to be this cult classic, but it's so bad.
I mean, yeah.
Surely, 4 of fiction's most popular horses could fix the story, give it a proper ending instead of that weird meta one. But McDougal's at a loss, and he wants the horse's help to decide. Oh, and he speaks horse. Duh.
Way to patch up that plot hole, Kit.
With Chris as your hands, each of you must now write the ending to this never-ending fanfic that is distinctly different from the weird way the movie ends. Tell me how your badass horse uses their unique talents and experiences to save Fantasia from the Nothing. Obviously, you are free and encouraged to use aspects from the stories and franchises your horses come from. For the lightning round, we always go all reverse cowgirl and flip the turd order.
Oh, God.
What, is that not it? What's that? Starting us off will be Maximus. Giddy up.
Okay. Horse cop. He wanders around in the darkness. He's got a trench coat on.
Megan
got
Bob
a
already
fedora.
wins.
He's going, what the fuck is this darkness? He's occasionally looking around. He's taking a nip from a bag of oats. He knows what he has to do. He has to do what a cop would do. And so he gets out a pair of handcuffs and he arrests the darkness around him. He arrests the nothing. And he's like, get the fuck in these handcuffs. I'm sick of your shit. I'm sick of your attitude. I'm taking you to prison. And so he gathers up all of it and he just stomps it. He stomps it until it's all in the handcuffs. And then it's just a little bundle of nothing. And the nothing's going, what? Why are you like this? And he's like, because I'm a horse cop and I know my job. And then he throws it in the back of a wagon that's pulled by other horses. He takes it to jail. And then the nothing just hangs out in jail forever and does a lot of community service and keeps quiet because it doesn't want to get stomped on. And everything's better.
Yep, definitely better than that fucking awful ending for the Neverending Story. Next up is Agro.
So as previously mentioned, this is exactly what I feared would happen in my opening argument. The world has been destroyed, and Agro is just paddling through space, you know? And then she ends up landing on like a little rocky planetoid that she starts exploring. This, by the way, is not a story. It's a video game. In the vein of Shadow of the Colossus or Ico or The Last Guardian, it's a like no dialogue, just mysterious, very little music kind of mood piece with like not very much color or anything, you know? So you just play the horse as the main hero, like going around these like rocky planetoids. And then you find a mysterious friend like you do in all three of those games. It's, you know, you're the princess in one, and it's and Agro is the companion you have in Shadow of the Colossus, and in The Last Guardian is this like big bird lion thing that you ride.
Yeah.
So his that Agro finds is he finds a mount of his own, which is the rock biter. So, you know, Agro's like the brains of the operation, and the rock biter's just like his muscle and his mount. So like Agro just like sits on his head. Aww. And yeah, they go around, they have adventures together. It's a little bit Super Mario Galaxy, going from planetoid to planetoid. They kind of repair stuff as they go. There's weird pillars of light that they activate, and it like repairs planets and stuff like that. You know, this kind of video game. You've all played this video game.
Where is this Kickstarter?
Yeah. In the end, they finally make their way back to the Ivory Tower, and they reach the princess. They're like, okay, cool, but you still gotta name me. But like they can't name her because they have to get help from like, you know, somebody from another world. So they start praying to try to like see if they can get someone to answer their prayers to help give her a name. And they end up contacting the doorman, who of course pop down and say, thy next foe is. And so her name becomes Thy Next Foe Is.
Yay!
Next up, Epona.
Epona rears back on her hind legs and, you know, stands arm akimbo and starts looking over the script that Chris McDougall is writing. And she pulls out from her writer's, you know, bag of holding an editor's fedora and a red pen and starts making suggestions and basically gets all the points of the Neverending Story before, just X's them out, circles the ending right there, floating through space, all is lost, and says, there, this is your beginning right here. And at this point, she says that this is the start of the plot. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. And at some point, there are revisions that get sent back to Epona. She's acting now as editor-in-chief. She sends them back to Chris McDougall. He receives it, and it's just like, these are the changes you need to meet. What happens? Floating through space, all is lost. The heroes, in this case, Epona, a little bit of a Mary Sue self-insert there, hears the voice crying out. They go to where this voice is, and they find the one speck that is left of Fantasia. The princess, at this point, the Empress, but princess, let's get right back to it. She's not reinventing the wheel. This is the start of the next Legend of Zelda. So, what happens is the Empress is Zelda, the Princess of Light. And thus the nothing is an all-consuming emptiness, a darkness. And thus Epona's writer has become the Rider of Light. And so it is but a grain of sand. And the Rider of Light with steed of light, light steed to Endor, has been imbued with the power to bring the light back to the land, so that with the Empress's power, the area around the grain of sand begins to illuminate and forms into more sand, forms into a beach. Effectively, what happens is that the Rider of Light then has to go through restoring by cleaving through the darkness with the Empress's powers, using, let's say a sword of evil's bane, let's say, and perhaps some arrows that bring illumination to the targets they're firing. Let's say light arrows. And they go through the lands, restoring light until they find a core of the nothing. Some may say a heart of darkness. Epona's getting some inspiration from the other books that Chris has there in the attic there. And effectively, they end up where they have restored light to everything and all the land and have found the core of nothing, which is not an amorphous morass of unspeakable villainy, but a man. And yes, of course, this man's going to end up looking like Ganondorf, but come on, this shit sells, people. This shit sells. We've got 1 million copies already, pre-ordered. Effectively, the final climactic battle between the Nothing and the Rider of Light transpires there in some volcano-y place. I don't know. Let's call it a mountain of sorts. A death mountain, perhaps. They resolve the situation, and the darkness, the Nothing, is banished until the next time at which we come up with another gimmick at which we can then retell the same story and then have all the geeks decide, oh my god, it's like never before.
All right, last up, Hoot Hours, or Shadowfax.
It's not just the end of this story that's different because Shadowfax is in it. The entire story is extremely different. Shadowfax runs in and helps to rescue all of the adorable creatures that were swallowed up by the Nothing earlier on. Rockbiter rides away riding Shadowfax. There's that goblin who rides the narcoleptic bat, the gnome scientists. Shadowfax even rescues the Sphinxes from the Nothing. Eventually, as sort of a last-ditch effort, Gamork arrives to challenge Shadowfax. Shadowfax rears up on his hind legs, hooves kicking in the air, and lets out a prolonged whinny with the subtitles below saying, "You shall not pass," and then brings her hooves down on the ground, and a lightning bolt eliminates Gamork and the Nothing at the same time. So Shadowfax is feeling pretty good about his victory, rides off to the Ivory Tower to celebrate with the Empress, but it turns out that even with all his power, even with all his strength and his speed, he still wasn't fast enough to get there in time to rescue the Empress from her sickness, and she has died. But no, Shadowfax draws inspiration from another story in which a similar plot point happened, and Shadowfax runs around the equator of Fantasia backwards, making several circuits around this world until it begins to spin backwards, bringing time back as well, and Shadowfax is able to save the Empress by turning time itself backwards. And that is how you end that story.
Oh my god.
Is it really called the Neverending Story because Shadowfax just keeps reversing time?
Yeah, that's right.
You didn't mention any giant eagles in that story, so I'm gonna have to give you a 4 out of 5.
Well, it's only fair.
So whilst I think on horsey things and how I wish we were doing a burp match, I'm gonna go slam my head against a wall because I don't know what to do.
You know, Raphael, your last little bit really inspired something in me, and I'd really like to propose that we do a match of Death Mountain versus Mount Doom. I just think there's something there. So, Bob, this particular match was a real passion project for you.
It was.
You were lobbying extremely hard to get this episode made.
I was, and I regret nothing. I sat down and rewatched Tangled. I made Neil watch it with me. He does not like Disney films, and he's European. It's not a part of his childhood in the way that it is a part of an American childhood. I kept looking over at him, like going, "Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Did you see that horse?" And then by the end of it, he was like, "Yeah, that horse is a really great horse." I'm like, "This is my point. This horse is the greatest horse that fiction has ever made." I'm very much into an anthropomorphized sidekick horse. I just love them so much because horses are assholes.
Like, Maximus is really only partially anthropomorphized, though. Like, he's largely canine-pomorphized. Yeah.
Yes, which is a weird move on their part. I get it, because I think if you were to really lean into the way horses are, people wouldn't like it. Horses are not the most likable creatures, which is why I love them. They're cats, but if cats were enormous and dangerous.
Isn't it like a Disney trope that all animals inevitably are dogs?
I think that's probably the best call.
Miko's a dog. The reindeer, what's his name? Sven. Sven is a dog.
Sven is definitely a dog, yeah.
It's like, oh, look at these animals behaving not at all like they do. And Pascal. Pascal is
a
doggy.
person.
Yeah.
I feel like there's two options. It's either that they are dog-like or they just are a person. And Pascal, I think, is on the person end of it.
Or they are actually have like a voice actor and are comic relief a la Mushu.
Yeah. I mean, Hey-Hey's not a dog.
No, Hey breaks the mold. And of course, I mean, it's Wash.
So did anybody have any Neverending Story feels? Because did anybody else watch it for this? Because I did, and that was a mistake.
Other than Contempt?
Had you ever seen it? I think I saw parts of it as a kid, but never the whole thing.
I saw one of the movies as a child. I think it was like the third one or the fourth one. I know most of it takes place in the real world, and there's a gang of like teenagers who are the bad guys, and they're called the Nasties. And the Rock guys is in it, and that's all that I know. That's the one that I saw, but I had not seen the other one before this. And it has a lot of good stuff in it, obviously, but in general, it does not know what it is doing for a lot of it. It does not know how to spend its time.
It's like German Expressionism, but, a kid's movie.
They're all good horses, guys.
Yeah.
They're all good horses, Brent. I don't want to pick one, but I have to. Y'all did so amazing. Seriously, after we decided that we were going to do this match, I was kind of thinking about it. I was like, God, are these horses well matched? And damn, y'all like really surprised me. Maybe that's just the power of BS and horses.
The power of horse shit.
But really closely comparing all of the like attributes that I asked you guys to compare and just all the amazing arguments you guys gave me, I'm just ultimately gonna have to give it to Shadowfax.
Yes!
Congrats, you good horse boy. But god damn, it was
the prince
so
of
fucking
horses.
Close.
Now I don't feel bad, Dan, for going full aggro on you. Should have gone even harder.
Know what?
Yeah, holy shit.
I'm okay with this as long as Shadowfax and Horse Cop work together on a case.
Oh, absolutely. This is the buddy cop that we all need. Very excellently done, y'all.
Yeah.
This is a surprising treat to do.
Yeah, I hate that there has to be a winner, but Shadowfax's nose poked across that finish line just a hair before everyone else's.
And
God.
What a cute nose.
Time for the horse thanks? Nay. So first of all, thank you to Brad Boltman for giving me that terrible I have no horse in this race joke that I used at the top of the episode. And before I get too deep into the kid thanks, I just want to do like a smidge correction of sorts. So our last patron that we mentioned, HeroClicks201, that is actually Jeff Polier. So Jeff Polier, thank you for being an awesome patron.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff.
We decided to go with the display name that he had on Patreon instead of his real name, because honestly, that was all we had to go on.
Yeah, display names, man. Whatever name you want to appear on the show, put that one. All right, over to Twitter. Thank you to Cosplay Fiend, Jake Wars 8, The Last Jake, oh no, Sid Rabbit, Fortabari, Decade Fan, Earth Mofo,
What up?
Sean Boyd, Cosplay Devotee, Florian, In a Car Outside Your House Playing Pokemon, Sandwich Surplus, Viola Sanderlin, and the Unpacking the Power of Power Pack podcast. Over to Tumbles, thank you to Sid Rabbit Blog, Secretly a Skeleton Not Very Bright Raven, and Changing Shades, and beep beep beep. Time for the kit shame. Tumblr, stop flagging our goddamn promotion posts, because like I use tags like, I don't know, buttload? And maybe like actual play RPG. I honestly cannot. Why are you flagging my posts? There's no sex in it. Calm down.
There's a little bit.
Over to Facebook. Thank you to Jeffrey Ketchum and Robert Ramsey. And lastly, thank you to the Yumi and Duffy pod, because y'all mention us so much, we get new fans like Dave McLaughlin. Just decided to just fucking jump on there, and it was all because of Yumi and Duffy. So not the first time that's happened. I'm sure we really got to buy those guys some drinks the next time we see any of them.
Yeah.
Hey man, as
They're
soon as
awesome.
we're in the same zip code. But yeah, thanks to
You guys are
everyone who
peaches.
spreads the word about us and gets new ears on this particular show. And thank you also to Chris McDougall, who was the featured patron of this particular match. His patronage lent him the power of storytelling itself, allowed him to summon forth several fictional horses, and ended up making, I'll say it, a better story than the Neverending Story.
God, yes.
You get all sorts of stuff when you're a patron of ours. If you are a $5 patron, you also get to vote on certain things every month, including the occasional match that we do, like this match, which was voted on by our $5 and up patrons, and therefore made Megan Bob's dreams come true.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, so we have all sorts of stuff over there, all sorts of bonus content over at patreon.com/smashfictionpodcast. And also, of course, thank you to Raphael. You are a stalwart of the show. You're a very strong, very powerful horse, and we're always lucky to have you in our stable, I guess.
Yeah, you crushed it beneath your hooves.
That's right.
Yeah. When you were doing your argument, I was just looking, I was like, oh, this is everything in my argument, but slightly better. That's great.
Yeah. 2 female video game horses enter. A totally different horse leaves.
Raphael, is there anything you would like to tell the audience about?
First off, I am on Twitter, the aforementioned @EarthMofo with like pseudo bastardized Creole spelling on mofo. I do some acting here on the side, in addition to, normal everyday stuff. And unfortunately, though in previous episodes I have plugged that they were on Amazon Prime, licensing. It's hard, guys. It's real hard. So, as it currently stands, the movies I have done recently, such as Lady Belladonna's Nightshades, in which I star along with my wife in one of the shorts, and then Lady Belladonna's Tales from the Inferno, which did have its local premiere not too long ago, and I think is still trying to find itself a permanent home. But I think they're both going to be available on what is now borderlandsmedia.com, just like it sounds. No underscores, no nothing. And also, I wanted to plug a YouTube video I did some voice acting in. It's a artist friend of mine did an Atomatic. It's under the title of Usurper, and it's made by a Cat Miller. And I do the voice of the kind of pseudo-Spanish voiced villain in that short, and it's only a couple minutes long. It's about 3 minutes, 34 seconds long. You got some time, check it out, and leave a comment if you like it. And if you don't, then fuck off.
Yeah.
We don't need that kind of negativity.
It was very, very good. Your voice acting and your Spanish accent was a very good character. I genuinely wanted to see more of that scene.
I was bringing out everything that I have worked all my life to suppress.
Including your Castilian accent.
Including the authentic Castilian accent from the American Southwest. But I really appreciate having me on. It was a blast. Thank you, guys.
Oh, thank you, man.
Thank you so much, Rafa.
Doing it.
Thank you guys for riding on by, listening to this here Smash Fiction horsey match. Next week, collaboratory.
Smash Fiction is produced by Miles Schneiderman and production assistant Sharon Schneiderman, with logo design by Claire Mulcairn.
Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod at Incompetech.com for our theme song, Hitman.
You can find us on Twitter at SmashFic Podcast and search for the Smash Fiction Podcast on Facebook, Tumblr, and YouTube.
Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice, and if you leave us a good review, we shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Smash Fiction is made possible thanks to our supporters on Patreon at patreon.com/smashfictionpodcast. Please consider donating as little as $1 each month. It helps us keep the show going, and we have great rewards and extra content for those who help us out.
If you have any suggestions, feedback, or other contributions, send them to us at smashfictionpodcast@gmail.com and help us continue the fight.
man, I gotta fucking replay that game, man. It's so good.
Can we all just agree right now that each and every one of these are immeasurably better than Atreyu ever will be on their
absolutely,
worst days
absolutely.
than he is on his best day?
Oh yeah, it's just a fucking dumb kid. Just give the horse the story. You know what? I feel like the horse sank into that swamp because of that boy, because he was freaking out. Anyway,
He's like, oh no, I'm stuck in the swamp. And then, like, after he leaves a minute later, the horse gets out. He's like, oh, thank God, that kid left.
I mean, that, to me, that's headcanon right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, if Atreyu was my rider, I'd be pretty dang sad too. I'd probably sink into that swamp.
Oh
God,
gosh.
this kid.
Holy hell, I forgot how big Agro was. I just looked at the picture. I was like, oh yeah, she's a monster. A beautiful monster.
Maybe she's the 17th Colossus.
You know what? Oh my god, secret one. You heard it here first, folks.
Too bad you can't penetrate her hide with your sword, unlike all of the other Colossus.
She's got no glowy bits.
She's got no glowy bits. Glowy bits are inside. I don't know.
All of our glowy bits are inside Claire.
I don't know what this means.